get a little closer so you could really see what this is doing. Isn't that a great shape? What a great bead. A little connecting bead, accent bead. Fantastic. And on these earrings, come on now. Tutorial Tuesday with the greatest little pair of earrings that we are going to make today. A spin on a classic look. We've, you know, if you've grown up in the 80s and the 70s, you've definitely seen this kind of like a stud. What a great spin on that classic look. And it's a marriage of this stud and a hoop and kind of a dangle all in one. Plus, bonus, you get this great element that you can use as a bead. So it's not just for these earrings. You can take this part, you could watch through the tutorial just to this part and take this and use this as a bead for multiple different things. So, and in this tutorial, you're going to learn some basic tool usage. So you're going to be able to learn to use this large wrap. We're going to learn to make coils, making hoops, making a different type of ear hook, this kind of hinged ear hook. So a lot of great things going on in this tutorial. Stick around. We're going to get into all the goody details and I'll tell you what you need. To make this pair of earrings, or at least just the bead, you'll need some flush cutters, which I have here. And I use a bail plier to make the coil. So you would definitely at least need those things. But if you want to continue on, you want to make the earrings in general, find something either like a ring mandrel, or if you have these large wrap and tap pliers, those are going to be essential. Plus, I also do pick up my really small round nose pliers because we want this hinge, we want this to be as small as possible because this is going to be sitting in front of your ear hole. You'll need your hammers and a ruler. Plus, I use my handy dandy nail file to do my shaping up and filing, bench block, and I'm going to show you in 18 gauge, but I also made one in 20 gauge. Maybe you don't want your coiled bead, we're going to call that a coiled bead, so big. Maybe you want a smaller one. You're going to need 20 gauge to make a smaller one. I did try to go ahead and I was like, oh, I want to make a smaller one, and I went ahead in the 18 gauge. It doesn't work. You've got to scale down to the next gauge of wire to make a smaller coiled bead. Let's get ready and make this together. I just want to say it's wonderful having you tuned in. I love your comments. Oh my goodness. Keep the comments coming. I love hearing from you and how you enjoyed the tutorial, what you learned, what you had problems with. I'm always here to help as much as I can. Using this 18 gauge, you're going to need about a foot to make all of that coilage. I don't know if coilage is a word, but we're going to use it. I'm just giving a light polish to this, trying to remove any of this, as much of the tarnish as possible before I get my hands on it. And I think it worked out to be just about a foot, but I'm not going to cut. I'm just going to show you. I want to leave it on the spool. Sorry, I'm moving around. I had to go get my pen because you have the least amount of waste and you'll be sure to always have the amount. But I want to mark on here to show you that how close or thereabouts that it is actually a foot. Using the bail pliers for this size coil, I'm using the 5th step, which is 7 millimeters on my pliers to make this size. Let me get a little closer so you could really see what this is doing. Isn't that a great shape? What a great bead. A little connecting bead, accent bead. Fantastic. And on these earrings, come on now. Flush cutting the end using the 5th step, 7 millimeters, we'll just start cooling. Okay, I want you to watch what I'm doing here as I'm feeding it in. I'm pulling it around. The end, this tail is now towards the outside of our pliers. I want to keep feeding to the right side of my coil. And what that is doing is making the coils extend out this way. If you were to do it the other way, you were to feed onto the left side, it pushes all your coils into the pliers, and then you're only able to do this much, the length of your bail. So if you feed it in, you're constantly feeding it to the right, it will push all the coils to the left, and you basically, you can make a coil to the moon and back this way. So just feed it in to the right of that tail. And I'm going for about 13 wraps. And I'll explain why in just a minute. You see that I'm keeping my hand right there at the base of the pliers here and really feeding it in so it stays nice and tight. See where our little dot is. Oh, I'm almost to the dot. Let's see. See a little black dot that we made. I want to see, once we get to the dot, how many wraps? Will it be 13? Let me see. Perfect. I've got 13 wraps. I count this little tail, and then I'll be counting that the other little tail that's going to be left as a layer, as a wrap. Flush cutting that end. Squeeze it together just a little bit. We don't want it super tight because then you can't do this next part that I'm going to show you. Before I get to the part, I want to actually, let me push this down a little bit. It's sticking out a little too much. I'll put it back on the pliers and mash it down. Try to get it into that coil shape. Taking these nail filers, it's a great little tool. I just want to sand down these edges. I'm kind of going for this angle filed end. And you might be saying, Carrie, but now you've kind of sanded a lot of parts, kind of ruined the sheen. That's fine, because I'm going to be putting these through the tumbler as well. Really harden up this, the ear wire and all the parts that we want to stay nice and firm. All right, I'm going to count in 6 layers. 1, 6, and on the 7th one, I just want to pull it open just enough that I can get some flush cutters in there and cut that. We don't want to pull it way apart, because then you got to deal with a whole bunch of this separation. So just at least amount as possible to get your pliers in there. I'm just sanding this down a little bit. It's a little sharp on the edge. Getting those edges perfect is not too critical, because you'll see in a few moments that they're going to be hidden inside this coil. Inside the coil, I mean, you can tell you don't see any edges on that. Let's see, one that's kind of open already. This one is kind of open already. Hold your other part of the coil where you can see the ends. We're going to try to make an effort to cover that over anyway. I've made a slight separation on the end here. I'll give you a moment to see how I'm holding these. And we're going to start feeding this all the way through this part of the coil. See how it's coming out the other end? And then once it's through, you just start twisting. And it's going to lock these 2 coils together. It gets a little fiddly, because then your fingers start getting in the way when it starts coming through the other end. You do that, this one, oof, your fingers will definitely get in the way with a 20 gauge using the a smaller bail, and it's like turns into watermelon seed. The thing just goes flying. So be prepared for that, but it is awfully cute in a smaller version. Okay, so now I've got it on here, and it's got some movement, but what I want to do is I want to make sure both coils, their ends are hidden inside this shape. So I've turned both of the coils, so if you look down in there, you can see the ends of the one, and the ends are down inside that coil. So at this point, this is where it comes you get maybe a little frustration out. Put it down on your surface, and at this point where it kind of does this crisscross, you don't want to have it straight up and down like that. You want to have it just angled, so you're seeing the shape like this. And you're going to take your thumb, or whatever's more comfortable for you, and just press straight down. So it mushes it out into the shape that we're going for. Plus, doing this is going to help you, when we get to this point, you're going to see it's made it easier to feed in the ear wire, this hoop part. So now that we've made this wonderful portion of these earrings, this could be the earrings. This could go on and be a connector or an accent bead for other pieces that you're working on. This is why this is such a great project, because you're not just going to get earrings, you're going to get some other elements that's going to help you in your other jewelry projects. I'm going to take some 18 gauge that we're going to use to make the ear wire, the ear hoop. It's going to hold this wonderful little connecting bead. 4 inches is just a rough. It's going to be trimmed down, but this will give you enough to work with, and you won't be worried about running out. No need to worry about flush cutting, because like I said, it's going to be trimmed. To make the hoop on this earring, I use the largest size on this large wrap and tap pliers. I think it's around 20 millimeters. It's hard to tell. I did have it written on there, but I'm pretty sure it's 20 millimeters or something like that. You could also use a ring mandrel. I'm just going to pop that in there and start bending around, holding it firmly. I've got to turn it. You see I have to turn it so I have more space to bend it. And I'll just gently turn it with my hands. And we'll come out with a little hoop there. And the reason why we bend around the whole shape, even though we're going to be trimming and making hoops and stuff, because we want this shape to be round all the way to the point where we make the little loops and to attach an ear wire. So that is one reason why you have to overlap these ends. Imagine your bead on there, somewhere about in here. And we want to leave about a centimeter opening up here to get your ear in there and all that goodness. We want to take some chain nose pliers, grab one of those wires, and then bend straight up like that. Have this little bit of wonkiness to deal with, but that's all right. I want to leave about a centimeter for this opening. So I'll just kind of use my ruler here to tell me where I need to bend the other wire. And holding right in here very firmly as I bend straight up on the other side. Now we're going to take our pliers and bend these out and straighten them out. These are going to become the little hoops on the little loops. Hoop and loop is interchangeable apparently when I'm talking. And to make our little hinged ear wire. So adorable. Get it straight and before we move on and make those hoops, while our form is still nice and flat, This is a great time, a critical time where you're going to want to hammer this out and get it as firm and strengthened as possible. The other step that we need to do before we put these hoops on the end is put our wonderful little coiled bead on. You can do this, you can put it on there before you bend these out. Either one, because either way will work. Just make sure you put it on before you put the little loops on the end. There is a little gap. There's a little gap right in there. And that's where we're going to stick one of these little arms and feed it through the coil until it comes out this other side. And pressing down on this coiled bead is what really opened up these channels. And just slide it on. Oh my goodness, we are halfway to the cutest pair of earrings ever. I'm going to leave myself about 1/4 of an inch extending out here to make the loop. And to get to the other side to match, I just kind of use the pliers like that, going straight across and making a nice clean snip. Now this is the one time where you're going to see me use some round nose pliers because I do want this loop to be as tiny as possible. And I'm just making this loop, wrapping it on around. So I've got it looking like this, but I don't want it going to the side. I want it straight up and down. So I'll put my pliers back in, bring it around right to the place where I want it to bend, and then just bend backwards. So now I have a nice straight up and down loop. The one thing you need to pay attention to is this is the side that is closed. Here's the open side. We want them to match. We don't want an opening on one side and one on the other. So pay attention to how you've got your loops going and just make it match. The one thing that's so nice about this little bead is either side looks exactly the same. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm holding all this really firmly so I don't bend it up as I'm making this loop. And like I said, I don't want it straight out to the top. To the side. I want it to come to the top. So I just put my pliers back in there, swing them around to the point where I want the bend, and then just turn the pliers. And now I have it straight up and down where I want it. Almost there. I'm going to take some chain nose pliers and just clean these hoops up, get them nice and straight. I think I have around 1 centimeter in between. That's good. Perfection. All right, now we're going to use our 20 gauge wire to make the little hinge, the hinge at the top. Cut yourself about 1 inch. Obviously, we're going to need about 1 centimeter. We need to have a little bit for the little bloop at the end and a loop. So just give yourself 1 inch. It's enough to work with, form it, and all that goodness. I'm going to leave enough on one end to make our loop. That's going to connect it. And bend on around until it looks like this. Using round nose pliers again, I'm going to put this loop in on the end. Holding this very firmly so we don't mess up our shape. And just bend it backwards. Straighten it up if you need to. Get the cutest little tiny little loop ever. where is it? I tried to hook it. What I'm going to do because you might not have exactly 1 centimeter in this opening. You know, things happen. So what you're going to do is put it on there before you cut it. And what I did was just, you twist open back and forth. Don't pull it out so you don't mess up this wonderful little loop that you just made. And we're going to see where it kind of meets the other side, where it wants to sit. I think I at least need to this point, and I need a little more for the little loop. So I'll just trim off about a 1/2 centimeter. See if I can get it through there. Yes, yes, yes. This is going to be perfect. Take some chain nose pliers. And we're going to make that little bloop and bend it kind of straight out, almost starting to go vertically a little bit. And there we have such a great little earring that's a spin on a classic look. I really, really love that. An extra step that I'll do is put this in the tumbler. That's really going to strengthen this hoop. It's going to strengthen this ear wire and shine it up even more shiny than it already is. I have this issue with the pliers. I don't know if you can see it. Along the way, there's these the tiniest little dents in there, and I want to take that out, and the tumbler will definitely take all that out. So what a gorgeous little piece that can be an earring or a bead, a coiled bead. Come on, gorgeous. Well, I got you here. I just want to say thank you to all of you that have gone to my website and you've purchased and you supported small business. And the holidays are coming up, and I just want to remind you that if you're looking for something handmade, made in the USA, I do have my website, carriefoscatodesign.com. I do offer 25% off if you want to join the email list. And there will be sales coming up, of course, since the holidays are coming. And I'd love to help you, serve you, and make something beautiful for you and as a gift. Well, I appreciate you joining me for this tutorial. It is really my joy to bring these to you. I love finding new ways to make new things where you can feel beautiful. I'm so looking forward to next week. See you next time.